Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching the YourTown television program. My guest, Bullas, artist. Welcome, sir.
Oh, good to see you again, Mark. I think it's been about 3 years at least since we've been.
3 years,
yeah.
and boom.
Yep.
I don't know where the time went, but here we are.
Here we are.
A little older, but better, improved.
Feeling a lot older, okay? The past couple of years have just been through the ringer, that's for sure.
So the Carmel Art Association, let's start there.
Okay, the Carmel Art Association started in 1927. It started for me in 1980 when I was elected to membership, and enjoyed being with the organization, working with it. We are a nonprofit, and we have about between 80 and 85 members, contribute monthly. We have a fresh brand new show every month and a diversity of artwork that beats everything on the Monterey Peninsula.
And I agree with that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So I'm always impressed what a small place this is, and what the amount of talent and the amount of integrity in the art.
Well,
it's strong.
If you mean just the Monterey Peninsula, indeed, okay. And it's our goal to include all the best artists of the Monterey Peninsula.
Yeah.
And there's a few strays out there that we're trying to reel in for membership. But it is pretty amazing. And most of our artists, members, are active year-round and decade after decade, myself included. And it's almost a monthly competition by bringing in artwork. We were talking at another time about the reasoning behind art. And there is a subtle competition going on.
And competition in art is really, really good in that you have to have a bar, you have to have people working hard, and you have to have people, I can show you.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, but it's not an aggressive approach. Okay?
No, it's a matter of doing. People work hard at this.
I think so.
And you have to know, you can't just half show up.
No. You've mentioned this a couple times. It's either working or it's not working. Okay, yeah. It's X's and O's. Okay, and you put them together in the right combination, it's going to work. Any other kind of combination comes off as amateur and crude. Okay, but and I think in my career I've focused on that. Okay, and fortunately enough, I get together with my friend Lucas Block at least once a week, year-round, decade after decade, and the comments that come out of us, Lucas has a very surgical approach to what he does, okay, and it's analytical, okay, and this is my interpretation of it. I'm sorry, Lucas. But mine, when we get together and meet, regardless of how much wine I've had, I'm taking notes, okay, one-liners, slang, things you only hear in a bar room or something like that. And those become fodder for me. So then when I get back to the studio, I'm starting to make thumbnails and laying things out and developing compositions and strategies and possibly colors. And I don't want to say I've been influenced by Lucas's colors, but every once in a while there's a color that I will see in one of his works. I'll say, God, I can use that color.
Well, that's why nobody let Picasso in their studio.
Probably.
Because he took everything he saw, ate it whole, and did it better.
Sure.
But that's how this stuff works.
Well, I think, as I said earlier when we were talking, that Lucas is more heady, okay, his artwork, okay, and this is the first time I've actually, had to, tear his artwork apart. But at the same time, mine, I spell it out for people. Like, don't tell me you don't get it, because here it is. I'm spelling it out for you exactly what it is, whether it's teddy bear picnic or hair of the dog or some of these other great slang terms that we use that we take for granted. And I play off of those, and I love those.
So you incorporate words. You love words. You're not a cartoonist. You're an artist. And it's hard to do humor in art because somehow art has got this thing that it's earnest.
Absolutely,
and you've turned your back on that forever.
Well, there's more of the good guys than the bad guys, okay? And the good guys look at my work and laugh, okay? And that's the goal for that. The other end of that spectrum, I mentioned the serious artwork, the figurative pieces like that. Those are specifically for competitions, and that's when I get to play dress up and so on. And when I do,
let's talk about that aspect of your work.
Okay.
And so tell me about these competitions and what this is.
The American Watercolor Society has I've just had a work accepted to them, always held in New York about this time every year. And the show is almost always, it's always been the top watercolorists in the United States, and now it's international. So the competition has gotten even bigger and broader. And I just had a work accepted to their 155th annual, okay, and the show opens in April. But that way I can show some of this serious stuff, and maybe it's a kind of pretense so that he's not always a clown, okay, but maybe he's a little deeper than that, okay. But there's no truth to that at all. No, I hear a term or something, or there might be something in reference that's historical. I go, oh, that's a great costume, or I love the wig or the headdress or the filigree on some clothing or whatever. I say I could use that in a painting for one of my serious pieces to go into competition. And it's not totally just for the art's sake. Okay, because those competitions have some major purses, okay? And if you're lucky enough to be, when the award juror comes on board and selects you for an award, if you're lucky enough, and I have been very lucky, and it's not necessarily skill or anything else, because there's so many variables, as many variables as there are artists, okay? And if you're lucky enough to get chosen one of those things and you get an award, that's another little feather in your cap. And you need that as sort of a balance, because that's your credibility, okay?
And that credibility allows you to look at another piece and see, because basically everything that's in that is in this.
Yeah,
It's just level of approach. But the professionalism here is in the professionalism there.
Yeah.
That may go again. People don't. Even if you think you're very sophisticated looking at art, people have prejudices, people have preconceived notions, and it's hard to strip that and look cleanly at a piece of art.
When you talk about the subject that you paint and so on, and regardless of what it is, the viewer's going to bring in his own interpretation before he even gets to view your artwork, okay? Because a number of years ago, and I'm still very much enamored with Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland, and there's a piece of poetry in there where the walrus and the carpenter are talking about eating all the oysters, and they're ravenous for oysters, and they eat all the oysters. Well, I did a very large watercolor at one of my shows in Carmel. And the gallery owner informed me that the painting had just sold to Mrs. So-and-so, and I went to her, I said, oh, congratulations on your extreme good taste in fine art. And she turned to me and says, oh, I just absolutely love the painting. And it was a walrus and a carpenter, but there was the walrus, and then the carpenter was one of my little ducks that I'm known for painting. And they're oyster shells all over the place. And I said to her, I said, thank you for bringing my artwork into your collection. I said, are you a big fan of Lewis Carroll? And she goes, no, I just love oysters. So you never know what people are going to bring into interpreting a painting, and that's fine with me. I don't like to correct people, and say, no, that's not what it's all about. But that's fine with me. It's whatever you see in it.
But in other words, a piece of work has integrity or it doesn't.
Exactly.
And as long as you have integrity, then it really doesn't matter how it's taken.
Exactly.
But you know the difference.
And I think over time,
Yes.
okay, and when you hang in there long enough, okay,
Yes,
and
yeah.
do it long enough, okay, people say, oh, I guess he's serious, okay. After 50 years of painting your brains out, okay, then they kind of get the idea that you're serious.
And then they can look at it another way, and then they can
Not only that, but
readjust.
they will accept pretty much.
Right.
Although I do have a person who is a fan of my work who has seen some of the serious stuff and think that I've gone around the bend. Okay, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, that really isn't, you do deal with the public, but most of painting, you're alone. And
I'm alone, but I'm also my own audience too.
Right.
Okay, where I know it has to, I always have to keep the viewer in mind. Okay, because even let's call it a lesser painting. Okay,
Yeah.
that isn't as funny. It still gets the same amount of serious work put into it. So no matter how it comes off in the end, and I'm a very fast painter. I'm very, I can get, I typically do somewhere between 65 and 80 paintings a year, and I've been doing that for decades. And I have built a repertoire of that, and thank goodness for the digital world, okay, which I am passionate about, okay, because that has opened up the world of licensing, the world in itself. I no longer paint for the world, I paint for the cosmos, okay. I know as corny as that sounds, but as soon as we put man on Mars, okay, we're going to open up a little Will Bullas gallery.
So let's talk about the audience in one's head, because they know if you're faking it.
I think so.
They know if you're onto something. They're on the edge of their seats, and it's funny because everybody doesn't have an audience in their head. So
Agreed.
Which I always, because I do. I thought everybody did, but they don't.
You've probably got gobs of people running around in there.
I got 99 seat theater.
I'll bet.
And then you hear this noise in your head, and those are your real friends that are sitting at the bar because they're sick of you.
Oh, I hear you. Oh, yeah, been there. There's always an audience, regardless, okay? And I think you have to be aware of that, because you're painting for yourself, number one, okay? But you have a little angel either here or there, and you're painting for, and they are critiquing as you're getting into this. Did it come off? Did you get the painting done? And if I can get it done in enough time, I don't have to look back at it and say, you know, I painted a black Labrador in a bar room, drinking a Bloody Mary, and he's surrounded by all these beautiful white bunny rabbits, okay? And I called the painting Hair of the Dog, okay? Which to me is an old term from having too much to drink the night before. And I did, a lot of that was obtained on during field trips and road work. But at the same time, when you look at this, and if you can interpret it skillfully, okay, and it's not just a cartoon as we all think about cartoons, even though Gary Larson is my own personal god, you can get away with an awful lot, okay? And if the audience, one person in the audience gets it, you can bet good money that two people get it.
It's and again, it took me a long time to get what you did, because I have the prejudices of every.
Oh, sure.
I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's the dogs playing poker, and then I realize
exactly.
And
Sure.
I'm realizing to embrace the dogs playing poker and start your art there, and daring people to take it seriously. It's very bold.
Well, even though it is humorous, and you specifically the dogs playing poker, there's a reason why that image has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still viable.
Of a billion images, I remember that.
Absolutely.
And to turn that on its
Sure.
head and to make it the thing and not to make it the joke.
Exactly.
And then to make it the joke again.
Yeah.
That's
That's
fabulous.
Once you get away with it,
Yes.
you have already broken ground, and you know the path to get away with it a second time and a third time. And I've got over 2,200 images in my digital library. And what that actually means is every time I finish a painting, it gets scanned or photographed high res, and it goes into our archives. And I say our archives because my wife takes care of managing all of that stuff. Okay, and so we can go back and pull out things, and if someone comes along and says, I have a winery, you know, and I've seen your images, I'd like to use X number of images, you know, and I belong to the American Graphic Artists Guild, okay, which puts out, you know, and you pay a hefty fee to them every year for being part of the organization, but you get a telephone book size packet of information that tells you what you should be charging for this. The information is out there just as well as the tools are out there, and when you put the right tools with the right information, there isn't any place you can't go and anything you can't do.
And in this world, you have the freedom to now work on a lot of levels.
Oh, absolutely.
And that wasn't always. It's a good time to be an artist,
Yeah.
even because you
not
can
only
work on
not
that.
only that, but we artists, okay, now can stop being used by the middlemen, okay, and I'm a very much anti-middleman, okay, because to me that is where artwork has almost been destroyed in this country or worldwide, because now the artist can say, not only do I want to paint the subject matter I want to do, but I want to handle how it's going to be live in perpetuity, okay, is it going to be postage stamps, is it going to be mundane t-shirts, coffee mugs, or is it going to be very expensive fine art prints or whatever. We can now have the ability and the information to choose a better direction for where we go with our artwork. Call it legacy, whatever you believe. But I think each of us want to leave this life leaving our mark.
And it's just the entrepreneurial aspect of art. Those two things didn't go together. An artist wasn't supposed to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, no.
An artist was supposed to be above that.
Absolutely. Well, not only above that, but they were kept in the dark. okay?
Yeah, or else they felt that that wasn't their job.
True. So
And-
they hired an agent.
Or they, or they turned their back on that part, the
Yeah.
unseemly part of it.
Yeah.
And yet,
Yeah.
anymore, that's kind of is the art on a certain level.
I think so.
And people who are good entrepreneurs are worthy of admiration.
Well, that's awfully kind. I thank you, and I hope I'm included in that group.
Yeah.
But since the tools are there, and it's I did a children's book a number of years ago, and it was a children's alphabet book and so on. And I was working with the writer, and we met at a small coffee house in San Francisco, and we went through the alphabet to start talking about this. And it wasn't that I didn't know the alphabet. No, I swear I did know it. But as we went through it, the letter Y came up, and the Y is for Yoruba. And I said to him, what is Yoruba? I don't understand this. And he says, well, it's an East African country who 4,000 years ago developed the first lost wax process for their little deities. And he said, I want to show one of those on the pages of the book. And I said, fine, where do I find this? He says, I don't know. He says, but I just read about this. I saw little ugly, little pixelated pictures of these things, and he says, I'll just leave it to you. So one of the best resources that I went to and still maintain today is the internet. You go to eBay, and people, whether these things were taken out of by the British government, for the museum or whatever, illegally or whatever, but here are these gorgeous little bronze deities, okay, prepared and made through the lost wax process by the Yoruba tribe. The photographs are high res, very close, lots of detail, so an artist can look at those and say, wow, cool, I can do this, I know what this is. So there's a way to connect worldwide, if not cosmically wide, since we opened a gallery on Mars. That the access is there, the tools are there, and I like to refer to them as toys, because I enjoy working with them.
It is toys, and the luxury of this, we talk about Lewis Carroll and these words and the teddy bear's picnic. And if you weren't making this art, all this poetry, what do people do with poetry when they're not making things?
Yeah.
You get to play with words.
Yeah. Well,
And
I also get to use as another tool in my repertoire words from great people.
Yeah.
Okay. I even even words from Attila the Hun. Okay. And one of his famous quotes was, "It's not so much that I succeed, but that everybody else fails." Okay. And that's a horrible thing to say. Okay. But and that was just for laughs. But there are so many things that I can pull something out of, and because of the way we twist words in the English language, I don't know how anyone comes to this country and learns to speak American English. You take the word trunk, okay, is it an elephant's trunk, a steamer trunk, a tree trunk, swimming trunks? I don't know how those people can differentiate with that instead of saying, screw this, I'm going back home, at least I can understand the language. But there are so many twists that we have, and out of that, I like to see a little bit of difference. And if it's just for a quick laugh, so be it.
I'm Mark Baer. You're with Will Bullas. You're watching YourTown Television. This was great.
Thank you, Mark.